Okay, this is a video for the Citroen C3 Mark II rear wheel bearing change. I think 2010 to 2016. So the first thing, obviously, you want to jack it up, and when you're jacking up, use chocks for the front wheels and axle stands because the back wheels will be off the ground. So there's going to be a quick video of how a wheel bearing should sound, and then how it shouldn't sound. So you first hear this really when you're in the car and it sounds like a loud humming or vibration. I'm just taking the wheel off here and the hubcap, but it sounds like it's reverberating through the whole car. So you have to go around each wheel, jack the car up, go around each wheel and spin the wheels and check. And as you can hear there, you can tell quite clearly which wheels are done. The fronts are a bit more complicated, the rears in my experience are a little bit easier. So once the hubcap's off, it's a 32mm socket, I believe, or it might be 34, I can't remember. It'll be really tight. I know you should be using a breaker bar for this, but I didn't have one. I just had an old ratchet, but definitely use a breaker bar. I tried a lot of different things, but the thing that worked the best was the axle stand sort of pillar, if you like. You just need something with some leverage on it, or an air gun. So yeah, take the nut off. The hub, it's on the inside, which is the curb side of the car in the UK, so the left side. You tend to get a bit more rust and water there because that's where the water lies in the road. So they can be a bit tricky to come off, but if you just give it a bit of a tap with a hammer, don't lever too much on the edge because you'll bust up the edge of the hub, but a little bit of leverage and it should come off. So now just clean it with a brake cleaner, get all the dust out there. Before you've done that, so as you take that off, you need to have the handbrake off, otherwise the shoes will be clamping onto it. So yeah, just give it a nice good clean up, and also give the hub and the bearing that you've taken off a clean up. You just want to get rid of any brake dust that's sitting there. So now we got it on the bench, you can see it a bit more clearly. So that ring on top is the ABS ring. Firstly, you're going to want to get the new part that you've got and just make sure it's the same. Check if there's any part numbers. I couldn't see anything on mine, but I just sort of measured up by eye, and it seemed to fit, and I had the spare split ring and new hubcap. So just make sure you've got all those things before you start doing this job, otherwise you find yourself a little bit short. So you want to pop that in the freezer, just get it nice and cool so that when you put it back in, it should slide in. Very light taps to get this ring off. It's only a sort of a rubbery ring, so it comes off quite easily, and with something that doesn't cut into it. Put some penetrating compound in there, or WD-40, just because it can't harm, just to get things moving as you're trying to get it out. So this now is I think the most difficult bit. This took me probably about an hour before I got to this point here videoed, trying to get this split ring out. For some reason, Citroen, in their unbelievable wisdom, don't put any rings on the end of their split ring to get it out, the Circlip, sorry. So there's nothing to put Circlip pliers on, and it's embedded anyway, so it's a real nightmare. The best way I found is to clamp something on one end of the ring, and then sort of lever the other side off, and as soon as you leave it away, you can't really see, here's my hand in the way, but as soon as you lever that other side away from the ring, slip something behind it, and then you can, as you can see in a minute, slide that round and then pull the whole ring off. But it's really just something, you need the right tools. I don't know if there's a better or an easy way to do it, or a tool specifically for this, but it took me ages and ages and ages, but this is the best way I found. Just get something there clamped in place so that one end of the ring can't move. As soon as one end of the Circlip can't move, you can see how happy I am getting off. As soon as one end can't move, then you can sort of lever the other end out, but as you can see, no holes. I don't know why, but just a very French design. And now time to get the bearing out. So really annoyingly, my camera was not recording when I got it out, which is the main point of the video. Obviously you can press them out so it'd be down in the direction you're looking at there. All I did was get the 32mm socket on top and just hammer it. Just keep hammering it with a bit of wood on top of that socket, and just keep going and going and going with a big lump hammer, and it will come out. You shouldn't really need to use heat or anything like that. Again, you can put some WD-40 lubricating compounds in there, but you just need to keep at it, and it does come out if you don't have a hydraulic press like the majority of us DIYers don't. So now you just want to get it cleaned up. So this is with the bearing out, nice and cleaned up. Get some brake and clutch cleaner in there and just make sure there's no debris or grit, ready for the new bearing to go in. So as you can see here, you can sort of see the inside, and you can see the ridges where the bearing sits. Pop that in the oven, not tell the missus, and get it nice and warm. I put mine in there for about 20 minutes, but realistically you probably want a bit longer, because as we see here, it comes out nice and hot, freezing bearing goes in. I've seen videos where they can drop it straight in. I didn't want to get the hub too hot because I didn't want it to sort of cook the grease out of the new bearing, but in hindsight it should have got a little bit hot and it would have dropped in, but it did actually go in quite easily. The best way I found is get the outer shell of the old bearing and just tap it around the edges. So just keep working at it. It will go down eventually. It needs to go beyond flush, and as you can see here, it's nearly there. There's a tiny little gap that it needs to go down. You'll feel straight away when you're hitting it. You can feel when when you're fully in, when it's up against that ridge. So just make sure it's turned and make sure there's no issues, and once it's completely seated, you're good to start reassembling. So you put that dreaded circlip back in, and then you just lightly, very lightly, just tap that ABS ring back on. If there's any issues, you should have picked it up before when you were sort of turning it after you put it back together, but yeah, as long as it's turning right at this stage, you should be pretty good. So again, just tighten it back up. There is a torque setting. If you do a quick Google, you can find. I don't have a torque wrench, so I torqued it up to as tight as I could possibly get it, which I think will be absolutely fine. So once it's all nice and tight on there, you can put another indent in the nut, just to stop it from turning, so that it won't be able to undo itself. Again, just check that it turns all nicely each step, make sure nothing's pinching. Put the hubcap back on. It was a little bit more tricky than I thought, but a bit of WD-40 around the outsides and it slides right in there. I put the wheel on first initially without that, and then had to take it all back off again once I realised that I hadn't put the hubcap on. Make sure you grease your bolts before you put them in. So slot them all in, do them all up, sort of pinch them tight, and then we'll be dropping the car and then do them up really tight once the car has weight on it, once it's off the jacks. retighten everything. If you got the torque specs, great, but just as tight as you can get them will be absolutely fine. And then there's little caps that you put on at the end. So if I was going to do this job again, it probably took me about 3 hours, but it should have taken about an hour. It's just that Circlip really took a while to get off. I could have made hammering in the new bearing easier if I'd have got the casing hotter, but there we go. In all, wasn't too bad a job. You don't need any serious tools. So yeah, just leave any comments if you've got any questions, and good luck.